All right. Welcome to Bitcoin Alpha Happy Hour.
Hello,
Uh,
folks.
we've got a couple of special guests today.
I see we have some folks that have been really prominent in the Bitcoin space. Hey, Vlad, what's up, my friend?
Hi,
It's been a
George.
long time. I loved when you had me on your show.
Oh, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I think it was an eye opener for myself to realize that this space is so much bigger than what usually gets promoted among, the Bitcoin maximalist circles and these conferences where you go and you think that that's where it's at, that's everything there is to this and nothing else. And the way in which you presented Portal, and at the time, so I think it was you and Eric Martindale who were on my show, and that was about 3 years
That's right.
ago. And it was mind blowing to realize that there's so much more to Bitcoin maximalism and to this entire ecosystem. So I very much enjoyed it. I've been following ever since. I enjoyed what you did with being able to do instant atomic swaps from Bitcoin to Ethereum. I think there's going to be a market for that, and I'm happy to be here.
And we are so happy to have you here. You know, would love to hear a little bit about your background for listeners that haven't met you yet.
So, hi, I'm Vlad. I've been doing the Bitcoin Takeover podcast for 5.5 years now. And I very much enjoy it because I discovered that instead of chasing some meaningless goals or trying to please some sort of niche audience, trying to be, for example, an educator for newbies or trying to please influencers and big names or whatever, I'm just chasing whatever I think is interesting. And I discovered that when I do it for myself, it's also of higher quality and I discover more interesting people, and there's no pressure. I can interview whoever I want. I don't care how many followers they have. I don't care to how many conferences they're invited in one year. It's all about the ideas, and I've been growing just following this path and realizing that Bitcoin is so much bigger, and whatever we think of Bitcoin today may not be the final idea of what Bitcoin is going to become.
Absolutely. And we've got another special guest here, Borovic. Let's get that mic check. Mic check
Yo,
one,
what's going
two.
on?
Hey, glad to finally have you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. Yeah, I've just been in crypto since 2017, and I shit post on Twitter. I guess X now.
Love it. We've had your friend Slumdoge on before. We've been meaning to get you. Finally happened.
Yeah, no, it's good to be here. Yeah, me and Slum talk very often. Yeah, when was the space that he was on? Was that a while ago?
That's been a little while ago. We had him on a couple of times. God, that's got to have been about 6 months ago now.
I think we may have actually turned him on to Bitcoin. Rather, I don't mean like he didn't know about Bitcoin. Obviously, I think he was really surprised about the ability to utilize Bitcoin in cross chain smart.
We're trying to reverse flip it. And next year he'll be Slum Bitcoin millionaire.
Yeah, tell him to sell his Cardano. He doesn't want to sell it.
Oh, did you guys hear about? They got a hard fork coming up. That's. Does Cardano do anything yet?
No.
Will Cardano, I presume,
Well,
Classic, be
technically,
doing
it
anything?
does do things, but I mean, it kind of does things, but it's, I don't know. I haven't really bothered to take 5 minutes to try the ecosystem.
Oh yeah, if there was some alpha on Cardano, we'd drop it. But at this time, there might not be yet. We gotta give them a
Well, no, it
moment to
doesn't.
build some.
I heard that like one one company owns like what like more than half of on like more than half of the wallets on the what's it called on the or something like that it's super centralized on the multi-sig. Yeah, more than like yeah, it's like more than 50% control of like the multi-sig or something. That's what I heard.
Rough. Yes, their ETF might take a little while longer.
I was actually looking through some old emails. I've been in the crypto space for like quite some time, honestly. I remember seeing an email from Charles, who is the founder of Cardano, all the way back in 2013, who was asking for my help. And I remember I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't even know what I could offer him. And when I see that today with Charles, having gone on to found Ethereum and then Cardano after that, I'm like, maybe I actually should have responded to this. I had no idea until a few days ago that he had actually emailed me such a long time ago.
That's one blast from the past.
I cannot wait until other people feel that way about me and the emails they ignored.
Oh
Chandra,
yes.
would you agree? All the people who said no to Portal way back when, I cannot wait to see their disappointment in having passed.
All right, mic check 1 2 Chandra.
Hey guys, hey Terry, and to all of the special guests, welcome. We're excited to have you guys, and we're going to try to make this very fun and casual. So feel free to speak up, everyone.
We're gonna be dropping a little bit of Bitcoin Alpha on YouTube.
Yep.
So we've seen the Ethereum ETF just come out, and oh, it did not turn out the way a lot of people thought it would.
Did it launch?
Maybe that was expected. Yeah, they launched last month in July. Ethereum was around $3,600 around launch.
And now it's a little bit less.
Yeah, but that was expected. I mean, at least like should have been expected.
Oh, you know what I was thinking of? There's a there's a leveraged Bitcoin ETF that was put in it as an application by MicroStrategy, basically for I think it was 1.5x or
But why would
1.75x.
anyone ever want to buy any kind of leveraged product? It just does not work in the stock market well. Unless
People
it's like a
do love
short, unless it's like short
casinos,
term, unless you just want to trade it short term. Long term, it's like awful.
especially if they're charging interest. But who doesn't love a casino, even when you know the odds are against you?
Yeah, no, I don't understand why leverage ETFs even exist. They're just like terrible.
So does a Bitcoin ETF help Bitcoin, or does it not help Bitcoin?
It helps. No, it helps a ton. I mean, because now you have people who you have obviously hedge funds, you have pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, all of the above, 401ks. Pretty much anyone who wasn't able to access it before can now access it, purchase it. So it obviously opens the door to trillions and trillions of dollars of potential quote unquote like potential money. So I mean, if like honestly, like it is the gateway to you know going to 100, 200, 300 plus K. I mean, like, if it really does open the door. So does the Ethereum ETF. I mean, like, it opens the door to insane amounts of liquidity. That was the whole point. And it's not like that. It's not saying that it's going to just skyrocket immediately. I mean, like if you look at like the economic landscape right now in the U.S., I mean, people are like scared. So, but if depending on the election results, probably we'll see a good year next year.
Yeah, that election results. What do you guys think about, like, I guess, unrealized gains? I mean, do you really think they're gonna pass something like that? Like, if you're
I
holding
I
don't
mean,
think
like only like they'd have to literally sweep. They'd have to sweep, right? Congress, Senate, obviously won the White House. I mean, not only that, but then they'd have to. I think they'd have to have like. I think it's more than just a majority, like a supermajority, or they'd have to like in order to just really do all that shit. It'd have to be majority Democrats, like in the Senate and the House. I mean, they'd have to have like more than just 51% or something. I mean, I think that's like 60% or something.
Unless they remove the filibuster, right? Which they can change the rules of the
Well, no,
Senate.
they can't remove it unless they get
Yeah,
over
yeah, yeah, yeah.
60% or something. I mean, but in that case, it doesn't matter. The filibuster won't matter if they already have that many votes. So it really doesn't matter anymore. The filibuster, if they get that much power, but no. But if that
But you
happens,
guys should all be
Puerto Rico
excited
becomes
about,
a state.
right?
If no Puerto Rico becomes a state, and like I mean, yeah, like there will never be a red president ever again. It's going to be blue forever if they get that much power.
So here's a good way to look at this, or an optimistic way to look at this. If they do implement tax on unrealized gains, everybody who's in cash will have a field day buying all of the bargains because every market will crash.
Well, no, so they want unrealized gains makes no sense. I mean, like technically, everyone's house that appreciates is unrealized gain, right? But even if you talk about just like assets, what just like securities, like stocks. I
No, I
mean,
was joking. I
how
was
do you
joking,
even
of course.
who like who
It's
who
it's it's
counts like
insane.
no, like if you ask most wealthy people what's your net worth, they'll give you an estimate. I mean, like Forbes has to do like an in depth like discovery like to look into people to see how much they're actually worth because it's really hard. It's hard to know how much you're worth. I mean, if you have like real estate and like if you just have stocks, it's just a number on a screen. That's super easy. But if you have private equity, real estate, all other shit, like how hard it is to like calculate how much you're worth. So like I don't understand how it's even possible for the super
You're
wealthy
right.
to even know how much money they have to pay. Like that doesn't make any sense.
If you bought the super wealthy, if they bought a $40 million home, which is not out of the realm of possibility, um, how can how can anyone be able to place a value on that home a year later?
Dude, did you not
Right?
hear that?
There's no market. There's no market for things like that.
Mar-a-Lago
No,
is
you
only
don't.
$18 million. Did you guys hear that?
Oh, they lowered the
Yeah,
price
I
on
tried to buy it
Mar-a-Lago.
at that.
I guess you tried to buy it.
If it's 18, yeah, I'll buy it and immediately sell it. But apparently, Janet Yellen, our Treasury Secretary, has a magic super secret formula to calculate your unrealized gains. So be happy, plebs.
The IRS also has formulas to know how many taxes that you owe, but still ask you to calculate it yourself.
Yeah, that does not make sense, man. It's like I gotta rat at myself, but you know what I made, but
We
now I gotta figure out what you had. That's crazy,
we
dude.
know how much you made, but we need you to know how much you made,
And if you did it wrong, then
and then
we'll.
tell us how much you made, and if how much you made matches how much we think you made, then you're okay.
Yeah, but then you might be overstating
And
how
if
much you made.
oh exactly, and if you've overcalculated how much that you made, we will still keep the rest. We won't tell you that
Of
we thought you
course.
made less.
So I'm guessing they never talked about unrealized losses.
There you go.
Yeah, the unrealized losses. And so that's a really interesting thing. I read up a bit on this. Essentially, the payments that are made for these unrealized gains in the positive in the positive direction act as credits, future credits against an actual liquidation, because what it does is it creates a new cost basis. So if you had a $1 million asset that went to $2 million, you have to pay 25% on that gain. So that's 250,000 that has to be paid. Which forget how the hell anyone is going to actually get $250,000, right, without selling the damn asset. But that then gives you a new cost basis of $2 million. So if you were to liquidate it $2 million or $2.5 million, you would then only have another $500,000 of gain, of which you have to pay 25%. But let's say it goes down. If it goes down, then the difference from what you paid last year as a gain to this year's current new negative gain is considered a credit. And so that becomes something that you can use to offset your current taxes or your future taxes, which I think, what is it? It's like 5 years that you can push forward.
So
a
what you're
capital
saying,
loss.
George, is that you really love the complexity and the idea.
It's horrendous. Well, it's horrendous, but I needed to understand what was being proposed in the
Wait, no,
first place.
none of that makes
because
any
it's
sense.
it's too horrendous.
So I mean, there's already a way. Like, I mean, in real estate, there's depreciation, right? Where like you buy a house for $1 million, you continue depreciating it, right? Let's say you're renting it out, whatever. You could depreciate it, let's say, from $1 million to $500K. You know, if you 1031 exchange it, whatever, you defer the taxes. But if you just sell it, don't 1031 exchange it, now you owe taxes not from $1 million as a cost basis. You owe taxes from whatever the depreciated cost basis will be, is like $500K. So that makes logical sense, right? But like, but not with, but not doing, but it doesn't make sense to like in this form, right? When it's unrealized, it only makes sense once you realize it, like once you sell something, right? Not selling something and having to that's like property taxes, right? Like you own a home, you're paying property taxes, and even then, that's only like, you know, some areas in the 1%, some areas in the 2%, right? So between 1-2%, depending on where you live in the U.S., maybe more. I don't know if there's areas that have like a 3%. I don't know, but
Right.
but like, yeah, like it's not like, but I don't know, like.
How do they expect
I
you to
don't
pay
think
for
there's
unrealized gains when you haven't realized the gains? So you have to go ahead and cash out to pay for those taxes?
of
That's right.
course,
And then you have a
unless you
realized
have
gain.
another source of cash. Yeah, I mean, this proposal is so crazy. I don't think it's ever been implemented anywhere. Even people from ex-socialist
Well,
communist countries
that's
laugh
not
at
true.
it.
That's not true. Denmark.
Denmark has taxes on
Yes.
unrealized gains.
Yes.
Yeah, but no, but that doesn't make
Ask
sense.
Shalini from Babylon.
That doesn't make sense. That makes sense maybe in the stock market. It's not 24/7 market, because you could you write what the closing, like, okay, what did your stocks close at, right? Not counting after hours. In crypto, you don't have that. There's no like closing time. It's
There's no
24/7. Like
after hours.
it's after hours forever. So I just don't understand, like, and also, like, what if it doesn't make any sense? Because your net worth could be $50 million. You could be all into one random stock. That thing could shoot up like crazy, like Nvidia, just shooting up, and then like the next day it could dump 20%. So what? You still owe taxes
Like
at the top? Like,
like
what do you owe taxes on?
Intel.
When it hit 100 million, or do you owe taxes? Like, what if it drops back to 80 million the next day? Like, what do you do? It doesn't
Yeah,
make any
when
sense.
is it marked to? When is it actually marked?
Well, you can't market in stocks you can, but in crypto you can't.
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
Well, along those same lines, are you guys familiar with how the IRS is intending to tax stake rewards as well as mining rewards? You have a token that gets put in your pocket with a certain value on the day that you received it as a reward. However, so you have to pay income tax on the receipt of that, regardless of whether you decide to liquidate it or not. But if you don't liquidate it, then you take the risk of that token going down in price. And then when it comes time to pay your taxes on it, you definitely have to liquidate that token. And you're going to have to liquidate
What
more
if you
than you ever
didn't know
wanted
that
to
it
in order to pay the
existed?
taxes.
Someone airdropped it to you.
Ooh, that's a good
That's
point.
So
another
this is
problem.
basically like, I mean, any bad actor. I'm not suggesting someone do this, but any bad actor can take all of these politicians' wallet addresses and airdrop them stuff.
That's what they did
And
with the ETH. What's it called? The mixer. What is it called?
Tornado
Yeah,
Cash.
Yeah,
they started dropping it to all
Didn't they do
celebrities.
that to
they
BlackRock?
dusted people. Yeah. They dusted BlackRock and whatever. Yeah.
Does BlackRock have to blacklist itself now?
No, the staking doesn't make any sense. I mean, like if you're because I mean, it just I guess it depends, but
Well,
like
think about it from
if you're on
from the
like
standpoint of a gold mine, right? Or maybe an orchard. The day that you harvest your crops is the day that you've been able to count how much you have, but you don't yet have the ability to bring it to market. Only when you bring it to market and sell your yield in this real world scenario, do you say for crypto,
Right, you don't know how much you
even though
made off
crypto
of the
should
crops. Yeah.
definitely be
Yeah.
considered like.
I guess you better hope Red's Ample Ale is still killing it. And we're not onto pear juice.
And in the game of meme coins, where we see the value of a brand new meme coin drop by dozens of percentage points, even within the same day that it's been launched, you practically have to liquidate it same day. Otherwise, if you are in receipt of that, my God, the amount of taxes that you would owe, despite honestly the even ability to sell it at the price that you
but
received it.
if you, as long as you
There's
liquidate
no
before the end of the
liquidity.
year, you just write off it's the same tax year. You just write it off. Like you get it at 100K, you liquidate at 40K. You're not paying on 100K. You're paying at 40K.
I
But you
got a
have to
question
report
though.
it.
No, that's
No, it
not
is.
true.
That's well.
If you're receiving a 100K worth of tokens, that's income
Ordinary
tax.
income, right?
Yeah,
That's
but no,
counted
but
as
Straight
you're
at
but
ordinary
you're,
income.
you're but you're
that's regular income.
Wow.
So you don't
no,
write
but
off a
I
loss
think
against that.
I'm pretty sure it's tax. I guess it depends how you do your taxes, but I mean, it shouldn't. That doesn't make sense. I'm pretty sure
It
that
doesn't. Even in the stock
I'm
issuance,
pretty
It
sure
doesn't
it's
make
it
counted
doesn't
sense.
make
because
sense.
it's like you're getting paid in like Apple stock. Like you're not like it's not you're not getting paid in like USD. You're getting
Well,
paid in something else.
that exists too. If you get paid in Apple stock, right? Unless there is,
Right, which
that
is
is
stock
actually,
option.
yes, not necessarily,
Stock
yeah,
grants.
stock grants like RSU grants.
Hmm.
If you get paid restricted stock units, unless there's a vesting and there's a risk of it being forfeited, you are actually liable right then at the fair market value of the stocks. There may not be a market for it.
That's right.
You may not be able to sell it, but your taxes are owed then. I mean, there's obviously all sorts of ways around it with 83B elections and stuff,
Right.
but this kind of a
In
process,
Silicon Valley, I know a bunch of people who are actually selling on a constant basis whenever they receive their stock grants from their companies. People who work for Google
yeah,
and
typically the
Apple,
companies sell a
because
portion of it for
they don't want to
taxes.
take the fluctuation risk.
No.
Yeah, they don't want to take the fluctuation
Sometimes what
risk.
happens is if you go public, right? The companies actually separate it and only give you post tax. So they take some amount, they just sell it for tax purposes and then give it to you, the rest to you. Because otherwise you may not realize it, the price goes down and you're still liable for, 100K or whatever you got when you got it, not when
Even
you
if
sold
you
it.
printed out your stock certificates and brought them on your boat and had a bit of a boating accident?
Yeah, that's not a claimable. You can't claim that credit.
They used to say that in Bitcoin all the
That only
time.
works in crypto. Doesn't work with stock certificates because the company can just issue you a more of
Oh no.
a replacement.
So I had a question. How would this affect Bitcoin miners if they were to have this unrealized gains taxes? And does this open the floodgates to, like, first off, it's for the 100 million and people who make 100 million and more. And then, okay, now that we did this, let's go a lower bracket. If you make 25 million or more, or even less than that, it just opens the floodgates. I mean, just makes you accept it.
Okay.
Yes, eventually it might be
Let me give you a
$100 and
scenario
more.
that I think could actually work. So there's a big percentage of Bitcoin mining that's occurring in Texas and other parts of the United States. So these United States-based miners, they're not holding the BTC. They sell almost immediately after mining. One of the reasons is because they can't take the fluctuation risk. Why? Because if it goes down, they still have to pay taxes on the dollar amount for the Bitcoin that was mined at the time of receipt. So, what if they didn't have to sell right away? What if they actually could hold it? And what do you think that would do for Bitcoin in general if a decent percentage of the mining space were still allowed to hold on to their capital? Bitcoin goes up.
Indeed.
Right. But what if they hold it? These miners, right? They hold it. I mean, they could, if they're holding it, they could do something with it, like lend it out or decentralized finance some way.
They could. They could.
I have an interesting idea, guys. I want
The
to get
miners are actually doing.
your take on it.
Get into that in just a second.
Yeah.
Just 1 second, because what the Bitcoin miners are interested in doing now actually is selling their hash rate rather than selling the BTC as soon as it's mined, because they cannot take this fluctuation risk. So when they're selling their hash rate, essentially what they're doing is they're selling a future option on the Bitcoin that is likely to be mined over the next month. Someone else takes that risk because they can't. All right, go ahead, Chandra.
I think I kind of lost my thought. Maybe actually, how
shit.
about a tax on
I hope
unrealized
not,
cash?
because you said you had a great idea.
Yeah. How about tax on unrealized cash?
Spooky. Don't give them ideas.
What does that even mean?
Like those
Well,
coins you find on the sidewalk.
What is unrealized cash?
it's just like unrealized gains. You don't have it yet.
Unrealized cash? I have a bunch
Well,
of unrealized cash or gains.
Yeah, is that like a bag of money that just falls on you?
I have yet to find unrealized cash.
I find about 50 cents on the sidewalk every week.
You're taxed by
Not
that. You
that's
got to
realized.
tax that
Yeah.
50 cents.
I'm pretty
if I
sure
didn't
it's going to be
realize that I
part of
had
a
cash,
platform
is it
soon.
unrealized?
Huh?
If I didn't realize that I have cash, is it unrealized?
Yeah, that could be it. Or you're expecting to get a job which will pay you a salary. It's unrealized. So why don't you pay taxes now?
Could you be taxed
Guys,
on and
we
off?
might actually be going in that direction.
It sounds like we are going in
Quite
that
honestly.
direction, though. Like we're
Yeah.
already in that direction.
They're opening the gates to that. First they do 100 million, then they're gonna lower it to then if you make $1
Oh
million a
no,
year.
we fully trust that they will never ratchet it up, and it'll only stay exactly at 100 million. They'll never come after the
No,
rest of us.
come
We totally
on.
believe that.
Oh, you do?
They told me
I'll sell you a bridge if you want.
$600. I think I hit that just selling some board games.
There you go. I mean, that's the thing. It just opens it up to that. I mean, that would just.
The interesting thing about the scope creep of the government is that they don't necessarily have to move the bar. The Federal Reserve is doing it for us. So many years ago, there was a reporting requirement for cash transactions that are over $10,000. And that was like 30 years ago, maybe even
Right.
more. Now, $10,000 30 years ago was such a drastic different spending capability than it is today. So instead of changing this reporting requirement to equal what the spending capability was back then, the Federal Reserve and the US government are simply able to continue to squeeze us by
I think
not
it
adjusting
may be now
that dollar amount.
6,000 for gold and some other transactions. But I'll tell you one more interesting fact. If you don't report a $10,000 transaction, it's a violation. But if you actually broke it down into 4 $2,500 transactions, you know what it's called? Structuring. There you go. That's a crime too.
That's right. Hey, is there anyone out there who's not yet a speaker who does not live in the U.S.? It sounds like everyone up here does live in the U.S. and maybe we're all citizens, and so we are subject to the ire of the IRS. I'd be curious to know
We like to
from
call it
those out
Sauron,
there who are
but
not
that's fine.
U.S.
You can call it
Sounds.
whatever you want.
Oh, yes.
The IRS Sauron. Okay,
Who's a hobbit in here?
well, no, I'd be curious to know what people living outside the U.S. feels about their tax situation. I don't know where else Bitcoin is being taxed in terms of gains.
Be careful. The IRS might start asking other countries
Well, how
too.
much was France charging tax? I guess France, they were like doing like a 40% tax on the rich or something.
Oh yeah, and then everyone left.
Yeah, everybody left. Yeah, that's what's probably gonna happen here in the US. They're gonna stifle, what they say, stifle, what the fuck they say, innovation.
Well, it's already
Capital
They,
causing.
formation,
they've already
innovation, everything. Yep.
They've already done that in the healthcare industry, and that's why we have the fuckery. We excuse my language that we have right now in the healthcare, system, and it's just becoming this like chain effect where the rich get richer, but but the sick are just basically like cows in a farm. That just feed the rich because you have all these healthcare innovations that are helping, like Sweden, for example, has these nano robot like sort of things that they can put into your body now that can kill cancer cells. Like, what the fuck? Why don't we have that over here? Why didn't we do that first? We're supposed to be innovative. We're supposed to be next level, and Sweden is massacring us with cancer. So is like over in Europe, in London, they have, the vaccines, the cancer vaccines, all this sort of stuff is coming to light. That was supposed to be, we'd had Pfizer and this, pandemic and these vaccines that were supposed to, cure everyone because of this new technology that was like space age, but they're not. It's bullshit. It's all bullshit. It's all to feed the rich, and that's what's happening. So they're applying that sort of mentality to like crypto and any other innovation because they just want to be able to tax and tax and tax and then have the upper 1% just kind of earn, and then everybody else just becomes the farm, for that. And it's so obvious now. And I know there's new crypto regulation down in Australia that's coming to light. So I mean, it's not even just here. It's going to be like a worldwide plague because we were the guinea pigs of how you can really farm a country to serve the higher ups and the wealthy.
Indeed. Chandra, you might have had some experience in the healthcare industry.
Unfortunately, I do. And what I can tell you is, after all of the great reforms that were implemented in 2008, 2009, just look at the life expectancy and how it dropped in the US. That's kind of the bottom line, right? If you want to measure the effectiveness, that's the KPI that matters.
But isn't it?
And
Oh, sorry.
um, yeah, and I was also going to say they completely destroyed the innovation in medical device industry, which we pioneered. And the cost of healthcare keeps rising and the quality of healthcare keeps going down. The number of administrators has skyrocketed. There is so much terrible stuff in healthcare. And you think, finance or fintech is bad. Just look at healthcare. And I thank myself that I'm not in that industry anymore.
I find it really funny that all of this has happened, and if you go back to just our food products and how we eat in the United States, what we put in our bodies, right? Compared to like Europe, if you go to Europe, you'll feel like 10 times healthier in like a week just because you're eating food that's not processed, that doesn't have preservatives, that it's just better for you, and it's like you can eat more and be like skinnier because it doesn't have all this crap that we stick in it in the United States. And I think that they do that on purpose because it makes us sick. And then we feed it feeds the healthcare companies because they need to develop more and more something or another to cure something or another, which causes something else. It's the biggest Ponzi scheme on the planet. Well, besides the Fed and the US dollar. But yeah.
Indeed. Indeed.
That's because people with chronic illnesses, at least in the U.S., are typically able to have their health care covered by the government, especially when you hit a certain age. But they're the ones that make the entire system cost a lot. So it's interesting though to see it from the perspective, MetaMan, that you just mentioned, where healthcare companies are more interested in creating chronic illness than helping keep people healthy. Because for them, it's not about saving money, right? As long as there's someone who can cover the bill, and that's I think the issue is that we actually do have some guaranteed way by the government for healthcare companies to get paid by people who or get paid on behalf of people who are sick.
Repeat customers in an opaque system without a blockchain.
Boom.
Everybody wants those sweet SaaS economics, right?
Indeed. Now, we talked a little bit about mining before. What are our thoughts on some of the up and coming electrical avenues for it? Texas has all the solar,
Electrical what?
but nuclear could be coming as well. Have you guys seen any of these new Bitcoin mining companies trying to piggyback off a local nuclear reactor?
Well, I've seen smaller companies talk about like AI and how like they will help, I guess, power AI, but they're also going to need for Bitcoin miners. Didn't Donald Trump talk about that?
Something about buyers of last resorts, right?
Hmm.
Bitcoin and AI, among others. Right. Let's see. What other Bitcoin alpha do we have to drop for the community?
That's an interesting. Who brought that up? Was that you, Terry, or was it George? Bitcoin and AI.
It was so long ago, who knows anymore?
Oh, Bitcoin and AI. Yeah. Well, they were. Well, I remember in Nashville when I watched the video. I don't know if anybody of you were there in person, but Donald Trump was talking about investing more in like I guess the grid or for mining for like crypto mining and also for AI. He talks about AI. He even talked about Elon Musk on that space about they're going to need more power to help work on AI. I guess because it takes a lot of power just to
No, I
compete with
mean
the rest of
that's
the world.
yeah. It's such an obvious thing. I mean, if you look at welfare of societies, energy consumption is the thing that actually predicts how good you are or how good you have it. So anybody who's actually not for drastically increasing the amount of energy that we consume and make that available is just nuts and should be called anti-human.
Right. That's like that reminds me of like the Roman Empire when they were making like aqueducts or whatever. Like it was just a human right like, to just have water flowing into your house. And now it's like electricity as well. Like it will
Yeah,
be
across every
a new
society. I mean,
empire.
it's like energy consumption is correlated with human welfare. Like it can't be any clearer than that. So, if people are against, energy in all shapes and forms, they basically are anti-human. There's no other conclusion.
Well, there's a very legitimate way to achieve sustainable energy, and we can even use mining off of this. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this concept. There was a presidential candidate named by the name of Vermin Supreme who wanted to put forth the ability to harness the energy of zombies.
Was this an American
All
or
you need
a
to
British?
Oh, an American. Oh yeah, no,
The
he
energy of what?
ran for American. zombie power. You put them, you attach them to a kind of mill, and each of them you dangle brains in front of them, and you have an endless source of power.
Wait, what?
Of course, you can run a miner off of that.
What in the world?
Wait, you're kidding, right?
Vermin
Zombie
Supreme,
powered Bitcoin miners.
100
Where are
percent
these zombies?
Bitcoiners
has
are crazy, man. That's nuts.
Where are these said
Cur-
zombies, and why haven't I met
Currently
one?
at
Actually,
DNC.
I've met a couple. Never mind.
many are running around here in San Francisco
Yeah, yeah. Or they're downtown in
looking for
LA.
drugs.
We got a bunch.
Chicago, I heard, for the weekend.
Oh, yes, they are all over here. We could definitely power a lot of miners with that zombie power.
Did he also propose making little kids run on treadmills to harness their power?
And that's one way to get job experience early.
No, but every child is allowed a free pony, according to his platform.
I want a pony.
Although we did not ask the ponies about this.
Yeah, how do they feel about that?
Yeah, man, that's not good.
Don't give China ideas for the child labor.
Pony labor.
Ponies have rights too, you know.
We should make
Exactly.
T-shirts.
So, on to our next topic. As you guys may or may not know, the next halving is scheduled for around March of 2028. What might we be looking at in the Bitcoin world then?
I think I know. I think the mining rewards get cut in half.
Ooh, yes. That could be happen.
Did I get it right?
That could happen during the halving.
My question is, will miners be able to even afford like what they're doing at that point, or no?
Well, I think the hash power goes down. If the there's only two variables, right? Like on average, a miner expects to amortize the capital cost of mining, setting up the operation over 18 months. And so, these are predictable events, right? Halvings are not like abrupt, unpredictable things. They're predictable. So if the price movement doesn't compensate for, let's say, from 3.25, you go to half of that. If the price doesn't double, you obviously have to shut down your operations and bring down the aggregate hash power or equivalent hash power. So there's no other way. I mean, they can't keep mining at a loss.
The fact that it's elastic makes it a nearly perfect system, because those who cannot afford to mine because they have electricity that is just too expensive will they'll disconnect their miners, they'll sell them, and the hash power, the difficulty rating of the Bitcoin network goes down. This is a good system of elasticity and supply and demand.
So you're saying that the difficulty of mining a Bitcoin will go down by that time when they
We've seen it happen in the past,
Hmm.
where there have been times of Bitcoin having gone down in price. There are miners who would disconnect their machines. We've seen it happen. Yeah, and it'll happen in the future. But here's a future where I think makes a little more sense than just the fact that some miners will be unable to compete, even though that is true. That probably will happen. But we're now seeing a lot of Bitcoin L2s coming online. There are teams that are building on top of Bitcoin, and many of them are trying to place anchor transactions into the Bitcoin blockchain. So while you may have daily network activity that is occurring outside of the Bitcoin mainnet, the settlement will always occur within Bitcoin. And so there may be a competitive market for block space. And what that will do is increase the transaction fees. So it may be actually much more expensive in the future to place a singular Bitcoin transaction or a UTXO. So UTXO prices may shoot through the roof, but as the entire ecosystem is growing, that may be a, uh, a, an acceptable cost adjustment because so much more activity is happening at layers above that UTXO that are then being compressed into a single UTXO. That would justify the enhanced price.
I mean, that was always the original plan, right? You have limited block space, you have two sources of revenue. One is the block reward, the other one is the mining fees or the fees from transactions. So when the block rewards go down, ideally the fees will rise to compensate for the loss of the block rewards, keeping the price of Bitcoin constant. And so this actually is core to our thesis at Portal, is that because the block space is limited, the only way to increase the revenue for miners and make sure that they're actually protecting the network against 51% attacks is to increase the economic density of the transactions. So a lot of L2s or various other networks using Bitcoin as the, basically resolving or what we call non-equivocation, right? Resolving the order of events in their chains and paying for it is very profitable for the miners. Even last year, we saw that when the NFT craze took over, miners weren't complaining. Some people who thought this was an attack on Bitcoin were complaining, but the miners were happy because their revenues went up. So more use cases, more economically dense use cases for the same amount of fixed block space. That's the way for Bitcoin to sustain itself without perpetually emitting block rewards, which is actually inflation,
So,
but
with
predictable.
And there,
go ahead.
I remember for the halving, right? The block that contained the halving had an astronomical cost to place transactions into that UTXO because everyone wanted to gain a rare sat, the sat of the halving. It has a name to it. I don't know what the exact name is. Does anyone remember what the name of that rare sat would be that existed in the halving block?
Not off the top of my head, but I'm sure the next one will have a new one as well.
It was basically like, oh my god, I think it was like tens of thousands of dollars in order to push transactions into that block.
And I thought a $35 transaction fee was bad some years ago.
I
So,
remember that because the ordinals wanted to mint on that block or something like one of the first ordinals. That was like what they wanted to do or something. I just remember that being a whole thing.
That one wasn't
Or
Runes, I
runes.
runes,
think
Sorry,
right?
the
runes.
launch of
Sorry,
runes.
runes. You're right.
That's right.
Runes. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Oof. That was a rough day to reimburse your friend for lunch.
so you were saying, Chandra, that with, uh, I guess I'm sorry, you. So the miners will want to stop the big miners will want to stop mining in the future if that was the case. Lower rewards.
Not necessarily. So the way it typically works is there's at a certain price, right? This is just like oil. At a certain price, excavating for that oil, exploring for that oil, bringing it onto the ground and selling it is uneconomical, right? Like that's the cost of, it's called the viability price. So similar thing happens in Bitcoin, where if the rewards go down and the price is stable, the miner revenue is actually cut in half. So whoever has the least profitable unit economics, the highest electricity costs, et cetera, will have to shut off mining. Um,
Right.
but the difficulty adjusts. So it's and if the price doesn't keep going up and up, what it comes down to is the economic cost at which you can repeatedly 51% attack the network keeps going down, and that's the risk if these fees don't rise fast enough to
Oh
compensate.
yeah,
Or yeah,
that's what's stopping from the attack on the network. But also it would okay, so it would make the big mining companies not want to mine as much versus like it would be easier for a smaller guy to try to mine.
I actually think it's the opposite
As opposite.
because it's because there's an inherent
Economies of
variability.
scale.
Yeah, there's a centralizing force when you're trying to do this hashing millions, billions, trillions of times, right? It's over long periods of time, your odds of finding the nuns correlate with the proportion of hash power that you have. So bigger companies can actually, let's say I have 30% mining power, right? 30% of the hash power. I should be getting 30% off the block rewards, but that's averaged across a long period of time. So sometimes it may be like 10 blocks where I don't find the nuns, right? But because of my scale, I can weather that storm. And if you're a small miner, that variance is going to kill you. So that's the reason why pooling is kind of essential. And I don't think that changes with halving. It just becomes more
So,
and more difficult for smaller miners.
Chandra, that everyone is joining a pool, right? And I don't even think that big miners are running their own pool exclusively,
Yeah,
because
there is a
everyone
pooling
is looking
pressure.
to be
We
able
call this
to
pooling pressure.
average
Yep.
right. So this pooling pressure exists. So regardless of the size of the miner, I think what happens, why a large miner has an advantage over a smaller miner, has to do with purchasing power. First of all, they can buy, they can fundraise, they can buy more chips further in advance, getting the preference of being able to have those machines sent to them first before everyone else, because they placed a large enough order, as well as the ability to purchase electricity at scale, which always means a cheaper electric
Yeah,
bill.
the general economies of scale that apply to every other industry also apply. In addition to that, you have pooling pressure because of the way in which this hash function works.
And eventually, we'll have lobbying capabilities, because they'll be able to have certain rates that are available that the government can appropriate toward the crypto mining industry at certain rates, or at certain times a day. I know. I think we've seen that type of activity already happening in
Yeah,
Texas.
with they were like paying them for not mining, right? At certain times.
Now that is
Yep.
That was
news to
actually a
me.
very profitable business model. I got to talk to one of the people who runs a mining company located in Austin. So they when the
Wait a minute. Wait. Of course, it's profitable to be paid to do nothing.
yeah, but it's also not very obvious to most people, right? When you're a miner, people think you're just mining, right? You're drawing electricity and you're making revenue. But the grid in Texas requests you to shut it down and pay for it because there are peak load times. Most people don't know this. And so you're getting paid to do nothing. So together, obviously, it's very profitable.
Oh, and we've got a hand raised. Mr. Kramer?
Appreciate having me up. I overheard you speaking a moment ago about the Satoshi, the rare Satoshi, and I believe what you were referencing was
Yeah.
the fourth epic sat, which is a little more unique because I believe the first two or three have not been identified
Yes.
because at least one of them's lost in Satoshi's wallet. But the Rune project, Epic, is kind of using that because they were the ones who obtain that Satoshi.
We have a Bitcoin historian here.
So that's what that one's
Just a
called.
big nerd.
Now imagine if that halving happened during peak time in Texas.
Yeah, so how would that spread out nationally versus just a state? Like, how would they do that? Like, would they be like paying out everybody? Like, don't mind. This is a
No,
federally
no,
funded check here.
I think it's only specific to the Texas grid and the problems that they've been having with load management.
Right, because they're separate from, yeah, they have a separate grid.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
And
I keep
apparently
forgetting.
they relied a lot on unreliable sources of power. So, blackouts are not uncommon in Texas, unfortunately.
That they have a lot of
What's
solar,
interesting though, I
right?
do wonder whether there was more mining activity during that block. I would be curious to know that even if miners were operating unprofitably up to that point, they still plugged their miners back in because that one block would make them profitable.
Just for
Because of the rare
speculation.
sap?
Possibly, yes.
Ooh, that would make sense. Next halving, I might have to dust off my 2012 jalapeno miner. See
We're
if I can
seeing a
get one
lot
of those.
Is
more
that the
in
one? Is that the one
fees
that
during
plugs
that
into the
time.
USB?
Yes, one of those eruptors. Or at the very least, click mine on my old Bitcoin QT CPU miner. You guys remember those?
Oh, yeah. Those were the days, man.
Mm. I GPU mined Litecoin instead of Bitcoin because the difficulty rating was so low at the time. This was 2013, but immediately sold for Bitcoin.
Smart. Now that's arbitrage right there.
I was listening to the miners speak a couple days ago, and I guess that arbitrage opportunity that they saw last year, they were expecting to see this year, and a lot of them kind of got hosed because the ERCOT grid stayed up, so they weren't able to capitalize on their thesis, I guess.
Ouch. That is not fun. So, hey, now that we have you, what are some of your thoughts on what we might be seeing in 2028 for the next Bitcoin halving?
Predominantly increased fees, transactions to miners, a lot more activity on the blockchain.
I think the same thing we've seen the last few halvings. Just a lot of hype going into it, and then just like just normal business.
Yeah, it's always a lot more fun to talk about than the actual day of tends to be. That's why Bitcoin Pizza Day tends to be the bigger Bitcoin holiday.
Yeah, I don't know why. What about the very first NFT sold on Bitcoin? Why don't people talk about that? Wasn't it
Eh,
like $1? It was like $1 per NFT. Wasn't it the Bitcoin Wizard? That was like the first NFT ever.
I don't recall.
No, yeah, it was. That's what Taproot Wizards is based off of. I'm pretty sure. The very
Isn't
like
it called ordinals, Boro, and not
no
an?
ordinals came like a decade later. I'm talking about something from 2012
Oh
ish,
shit.
2011,
Okay.
2012.
Oh, those colored coins?
No, it
Oh
was
yeah,
like
that was
it was
totally.
like a no. It wasn't even like an NFT. It wasn't like an NFT on Bitcoin. It was like it was like $1 for like a Bitcoin Wizard. It wasn't like an NFT. I forgot. Maybe it was token. I don't remember what it was.
They had music on Bitcoin as
Yeah,
well.
what was it? It was something. Let me look it up.
I know you
Well,
still
there's
can actually.
Counterparty, and you have, I think the first asset issued on it was called Test, and at the top of the NFT mania, that one was selling for tens of thousands of dollars. But yeah, I think Counterparty was the first one to produce assets that look a lot like the NFTs and also have marketplaces. But some of this was also on Namecoin, which was the first altcoin to which Satoshi participated spiritually because he suggested to the devs to create a separate blockchain for assets and name services and domains and whatever. And it was merged mined with Bitcoin. But Counterparty is still around today, and there are still a bunch of people doing projects like Spells of Genesis and Rare Pepes and
Yeah,
Fake
rare
Rares
pepes were like the
and
big thing,
Bitcoin
right?
Heads.
Ah, yes, Namecoin. Now that brings back memories. I remember downloading their special browser for the, what was it, dots bit? Was that the ending? It was dot something for their decentralized DNS, but it ended up mostly just being people squatting all the domains they could. Ah, that brings back memories. Merge mining, though, that does make a lot of sense. Especially as the halving reward goes, as the Bitcoin reward goes down.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. If we have many more merge mine sidechains, the miner revenues should go up potentially.
It's funny that you have Litecoin today, which took Dogecoin under its wing back in 2013. And at the time, it was no more than a joke. But right now, the Litecoin miners are more profitable collecting fees from Dogecoin than from Litecoin. And it's very funny because Dogecoin also has this infinite supply with what's it called? Tail emission. So basically, the security budget of Litecoin is pretty secure as long as Dogecoin is also popular. And they're making a lot of money these days, but in Bitcoin, it's still an unpopular opinion to have merge mining.
Yeah, do they share the same hash function, Dogecoin and Litecoin?
I think yes, because it's very simple.
Yeah, they're both
Mm.
based on script, right? If I recall correctly.
Yeah, that was the Charlie Lee's memory or ASIC resistant memory intense thing. But I don't know if I mean I haven't never looked at Dogecoin, but if they do use the same hash function, the risk is that to the smaller one, the smaller network, um, what prevents Bitcoin miners from actually shorting Bitcoin is that they have a lot of dead capital that is good for nothing else because these are ASICs that can only do one thing, which is SHA-256 hashing, right?
Guess they could hold doors open, perhaps?
Huh?
They could hold doors open. You could take
Yeah, they
the ASIC
can. They,
miner out.
yes, that's true. They could be used as paperweights. They could hold doors open. Potentially used as weapons when you throw them at, you know, high enough high enough velocity. But apart from that, if you have two chains that are using the same hash function, the problem becomes now I can perform a 51% attack on this smaller network, right? While I actively short it on some other market. And then I can have no cost because my capital is immediately directed to mining the other coin. And this is a well-known attack vector. This is old stuff from early Bitcoin days, but I'm surprised that people are still doing it.
Didn't that happen on Bitcoin Gold? I want to say way back in the day.
Exactly. Yep. And people advised uh, everybody should have known that sharing a hash function with a bigger network carries that risk, this specific proof of work risk.
Indeed. And speaking
But
of,
in crypto land, a lot of things go on that shouldn't go on. So
Ah, yes. Excuse my language, but all sorts of fuckery. Keeps it entertaining. Like, for instance, what is going on now? Let's take a look. Oh, I hear they let CZ out of the joint. He's now out and about again.
No, partially he's at a halfway house.
All right, right.
For like, I think he has a month left.
Yeah, September he goes totally free.
September. Well, it was supposed to be end of September, but I think he'll maybe be like mid-September.
Yeah. Do you
Ooh,
think the
that's almost
BNB
right.
token? Sorry.
Oh, no, go on.
Do you think that BNB token will skyrocket when he tweets?
No,
That's all I want to know.
BNB is like insanely deflationary. They like burn insane amounts of. That's why it's like is. That's why it's like number 3 or something right now.
It
Because
bounces quite a bit.
they literally, yeah, because it's like the most deflationary. But it's also like heavily. There's like only 21 validators and stuff. But yeah, because I was like wondering. I was like, I mean, really like that. That's how powerful being deflationary is. If you burn tons of supply, I mean, imagine if like Ethereum or Solana did that. That'd be crazy. But I mean, obviously Ethereum is deflationary, like in a tiny spec, like barely deflationary. But BNB is just like just burns. They've burned probably in the billions of dollars worth. Like I think like a large amount, like maybe like a third of their supply is burned already.
Wow, that's just so
Maybe
fun.
more than that. Yeah, it's crazy. They burn a ton. They do like
That's
quarterly
insane.
burns or something. Yeah, they burn insane amounts of it. That's why the price is so high.
I
That
mean,
actually does make sense for exchange tokens, actually, if you think about it, because the money they're using to buy it back and burn is directly tied to the revenue that the exchange makes.
Yeah, but it's more
So
than an exchange token. It's a whole chain. Like they built out Binance Smart Chain on it.
does Binance own PancakeSwap? Or is that
No,
an
they don't
independent
own.
entity?
Well, I mean, I don't know if they own it, but I don't think they own it. I mean, but like it, maybe they funded it because they like that whole BSC ecosystem kind of popped off. Like I would say like February, maybe like late January, February of 2021. Pancake went on BNB went on a crazy run, and then Pancake went on this massive run, and then whole ecosystem blew up.
At this rate, they'll probably have a few extra meme coins that CZ once he's out.
No, I mean like I don't know like if he's not like Justin Sun. He's not gonna be like, hey, let's start, meme coin season on BNB. I don't think. I think he's like moving on to his next chapter in life.
Oh, good for him. Maybe he'll start up a farm.
No, he's already announced that he's doing like some kind of school thing. You didn't see? He posted about it before he went away earlier this year. It's like some school thing he's doing, education based.
Oh, that's awesome. I did not hear about that. That's a little bit of extra alpha on here. Yeah, that does make sense as for Binance itself. Being that they're an exchange, they don't depend on their token. In a theoretical long term, if they burn damn near all of them, they still have other tokens exchange being traded on their exchange.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they make tons of money. Also, I'm sure like a lot of the burns, like the price was a lot lower. I mean, obviously it's been high the last few years, but yeah. I mean, I think they also probably have like a large amount of supply as well. So there's many reasons. I mean, they have a lot of supply, they burn a lot of supply. So yeah, it's a good formula for price to go up.
Now, if only we could track the informal burns that happen on Bitcoin when you lose a hard drive, when your boat goes down, or when your name is Satoshi Nakamoto
I mean,
and you
I mean,
never.
that go. I mean, technically, I mean, in a sense, you kind of can. I mean, well, like if a wallet's dormant, right? I mean, that's kind of you could just assume, hey, X amount of wallets are dormant, been dormant for this many years, consider them burned, then get the real supply. I mean, could do that.
That's a fair point. 'Cause on Bitcoin, that's got to be such a massive amount at this point.
Yeah, no, it's like I know it's over 1 million Bitcoin. I don't know how many though. It's definitely a decent amount.
And that might just be Satoshi's wallet.
Yeah,
Not to mention all
I
the
mean, if you
others.
include Satoshi's wallets, that's not going to be touched. I mean, there's probably over 2 million Bitcoin or something. That's. I mean, I don't. I mean, like the final number might be like somewhere like around 19 something million, 19 something.
Oh, yeah, and that's just so far. You know, every day you might read on our
Well,
Bitcoin,
like
our
that
crypto.
doesn't really matter though, because I mean, like all that matters is like if like that, the more people who don't sell. I mean, if you have if a wall is dormant but it's not really burned, like someone just holding it or they're just accumulating, like Sailor, you could. I mean, you can't. I mean, you're not considering his tokens burned, but like if he's never selling, then like isn't it kind of burned? It's like the same thing, almost. Um, so like that's look apply that same logic to the U.S. government. If Trump wins and doesn't sell for 4 years, I mean it's pretty frozen for 4 years, and they're just accumulating. So it's a good formula for price go up.
And good contributions towards that original idea of that circular Bitcoin economy. Pay for things with it and get paid in it. Maybe someday. Let's see what else. Before we go, does anyone have any last minute Bitcoin alpha to drop on our listeners? We'll bring some more next time. And with that,
I wanted to say something. I did this recent interview with this guy whose name is Mike Carson, and he's doing something very interesting with domains on Bitcoin. It's going to be called Spaces, and it will use zero knowledge proofs to be able to add as many domain names as possible and secure them on the Bitcoin blockchain. I think it's nice. I think it's going to get some reactions from people who don't want non-monetary uses on Bitcoin. But at the same time, I think it's going to be live on the mainnet in a month or two. So look out for that. If you have an important domain that you want to secure, maybe it's a good idea to have this alpha and look out for Spaces, which is on the Impervious website. Impervious, look that up. If you want to find out more, check out Bitcoin Takeover podcast. I have an hour-long interview with the guy. And yeah, if you care about domains and you want to register that on Bitcoin, I'm not sure if this protocol is going to be special, but maybe it's good to secure. Maybe portal.com or something, or at Portal on that protocol, just in case.
never hurts to squat it just in case. And with that, that's our time, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into Bitcoin Alpha Happy Hour. This is Terry from portaltobitcoin.com signing off.